He said that he appreciated that they would be helpful, but in exchange for saying yes, the MEK received a promise of protection. A promise of protection from the United States, a protection that was recognized by the United Nations. It was a very important commitment understood by the United Nations. Unfortunately, the United States and the United Nations did not keep their end of the bargain. I believe that the MEK did keep their end of the bargain, and that they are allies in the war on terror, and that they did lay down their weapons. It would have been very easy to pull them out or to reconstitute them to fight a battle that they didn't invite, that visited them on April 8th of this year. The evidence that we have seen of that attack on April 8th is undeniable. But the evidence is undeniable. And it is embarrassing to sit here and say that happened after a promise had been made. I'm also embarrassed because good people, strong people, who have not asked for help, they've only asked for protection, did not have that protection when they needed it most. The MEK are a wonderful people that have built not a refugee camp, but a city of hope that is remarkable. When you say Camp Ashraf, most people think of tents and people in poverty and people struggling. But Camp Ashraf is a vibrant city with schools and hospitals and educated people. 3,400 people, productive, adding value to their people and adding value beyond the community of Camp Ashraf. They can't be part of the world where they are. We have an obligation. I think every human being has an obligation to pay attention to the outrage that happened on April 8th. I think the United States has an obligation to feel guilty that their promise of protection wasn't kept, even when the obligation was transferred legitimately to the Iraqi government. But the Iraqi government did not meet any of their obligation. So we're calling attention to the challenge. We do have a moral obligation as a people. I think I have a moral obligation as an American to call attention to the problem and help to better understand the solutions. And again, the solutions will not be easy. And I compliment Representative Stevenson for the solution that you put forward and that the European Parliament has called attention to. But it's an important solution that should be considered. So I'm proud to be here. This is an interesting gathering of people with some pretty phenomenal titles. We have presidents and lords and generals and representatives and governors and ambassadors, and we have professors. But the truth is there are 3,400 real live people who are good and are part of the solution that are denied a chance to be a bigger part of greater solutions that the world desperately needs. So I say, call attention to the problem. The media, where are you? Policymakers, where are you? The MEK is not a terrorist organization anymore, and they haven't been for a long time. Delist them. Thank you very much. Thank you. I remember being here in Brussels about 3 months ago, and it was a similar kind of conference. And the warnings were that there would be a potential massacre at Camp Ashraf, and it happened. You know, we're all political politicians, resolution here, option here, but I think the video shows that human beings were massacred, and it was very clear who did the massacre. So the human side, I believe, needs to be
once again emphasize? Well, the Arab Spring is taking place, and I think it's very healthy. We can't just continue talking and wishing. So the first step that I think has to be looked at is obviously that the European Union has taken the lead. And I believe we need to follow you. And here I think Sturen and Alejo and Patty and Paolo, all of you deserve enormous credit for making this trip, Sturen, for very clearly outlining options, for fighting, and so my hats are off the European Union here. And I know there's always tension, the United States, the EU, you know, who goes first. But you've gone first, and you've done the right thing. I want to also stress the MEK issue. We've talked about Camp Ashraf, but the MEK issue is sort of a vehicle to do so many other things to strengthen the opposition movement. And what else has happened with the delisting issue? Well, something good. The French judicial system coming out with basically a report saying that they've conducted an investigation. Initially there were reports of terrorism, but there isn't any. I mean, that's the conclusion. The French judicial system. What other steps have been taken? Continued valuable intelligence by the MEK about the Iranian nuclear program. What else has happened? The Iranian regime in Istanbul basically saying, oh, you want us to clean up our nuclear program like we agreed we would? Oh, by the way, we're not going to do it in Istanbul. And so the rationale for a dialogue is gone. And so somehow, I believe it's important that we focus on the immediate issues. And I think, Sturen, this is why I asked for your memorandum that comes out with several very good recommendations. But have we exhausted all options to treat these human beings decently? I suspect we have. The other alternative that I heard of moving them around military bases in Iraq makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. I don't know why it's even on the table. And so what I believe we need is a combined effort of the European Union taking the lead, and I'm not saying the United States government should not participate. Obviously, we should, but we're a little behind on the policy. Get the United Nations, get some military strategists to come up with some ways that we can provide some of this protection. And then I believe what is needed is something that hasn't happened. Now, we have all these meetings. They're all very productive, bipartisan. You know, Andy Card and I agreeing on something that's historic. But you have bipartisan support in the United States. You've got strategic leaders like Wes. You know, you've got Zelikow, intellectuals. He's an intellectual, by the way. You'll hear him. You have broad base of support in the European community and the United States. So I think what is also part of the strategy should be a way to focus international attention on this. And I think it's important that obviously political leaders get together and do this. I want to just one more time to Alejo, to Sturen, to Paolo, to the Irishman, Jim, to Patty. You know, great work. God, if you hadn't done this, I don't know where this issue would be. Your leadership has been great, and I wish I could simply say to you that everybody should listen to you. They should. But my hat's off to you, and Mrs. Rajavi, to you too, and your movement and your people, the people that are always back you up. You know, let's not be pessimistic here. Thank you. Thank you.
My approach to this is to ask myself if I was still in the job that I had held at the State Department, say back in 2006, and this problem was on my desk, what would I have done to solve it? What would I do now? What recommendation would I make to Secretary Clinton if I was still in my old job? And so that's the approach I took here. I'll start out with two observations. The first observation is about Iran. I want to second Patty Ashdown's opening comment about the way in which you bring the Iranian issue into this issue. I came by those views from a variety of perspectives, including working on the effects of the Iranian proxy war that they are waging against our forces in Iraq, in which Iran supported, directed, trained operations that killed